Baxter is a new character coming to Hazbin Hotel in Season 2. However, it turns out he's actually one of the oldest characters in the show. Today, I'd like to talk about him, Crymini, their origins with Mimzy, and perhaps other forgotten or lost Hazbin Hotel characters that we'll see down the road. My name is Deepcut, demons call me ImpCut, and let's talk about not just these lost characters, but the lost versions of the characters we did get, such as Alistair, Charlie, and Angel. Now, most of you have seen the previews at this point, but at a panel recently, VivziePop revealed an animatic for Season 2 of Hazbin Hotel, focusing on the hotel getting a lot of attention after the epic battle at the end of Season 1. Here, a new guest has arrived, but one who most early fans are extremely aware of. This is Baxter, and for those who don't know, he was actually an earlier planned character for Hazbin Hotel that we've known about since before the pilot aired. Now, Baxter existed as a character since before the pilot, but that doesn't mean he's one of the original Hazbin Hotel cast members such as Mimzy was and other characters like Crymini were before it moved from being a comic book arc in Zootopia all the way to its own TV show. Before Hazbin Hotel's pilot, I believe VivziePop said in a live stream that she actually struggled to write for Baxter's character. VivziePop had said this about a few of her characters, I believe, but with this one in particular, I think she said that the character was proposed by a friend or family member who had developed their backstory like VivziePop had done for her other sinners, but that she still struggled to actually put him into the story and write for his character. From what we do know, he was originally intended to be a scientist who was aboard the Titanic when it sank. However, I believe VivziePop later changed this to just be a generic boat sinking, as she did not want references to real-world history too much in the event that she wanted to make something radically different in the past of the Helliverse. Just before revealing Baxter returning in this animatic, VivziePop had answered a question asked by Hailey at an interview before the panel, where VivziePop explained that she did want to try and work in all of the original Hazbin Hotel characters that hadn't made it into the show yet. It's important to remember that fans of Hazbin Hotel existed long before the series appeared on Amazon, and some fans were in love with these characters since before the pilot itself was even thought up, back when Hazbin Hotel was just a small arc in VivziePop's Zootopia comic. There are fans that still exist from that era, and VivziePop herself started this world in that era, and even characters she struggles to write for probably have a very special place in her heart, even if now they are just some vague image resembling the character she originally intended them to be. It's interesting that Baxter seems to be getting a bigger position in the show than Mimzy then, who actually dates back to the original comic storyline and appears in some art in a relationship with Alistair. Baxter may end up only appearing in one episode like Mimzy did, but if I had to guess, he will be a season regular to replace Serpentius at the hotel. Charlie herself jokes that he's basically Serpentius, and Serpentius was apparently fun enough for VivziePop to write that he went from being an initial one-off character to one of the most important in the show, with him even getting into heaven. Baxter, despite being a replacement for Serpentius within the hotel, doesn't seem to exactly replace him. He has similar energy, but they're not identical, and something about Richard Horowitz's performance just really distinguishes him. Horowitz is also the voice of Moxie in Hell of a Boss, and someone that VivziePop had always wanted to work with after his roles in such classics like Invader Zim. So it makes sense that he would be the one to breathe new life into a character that VivziePop previously struggled to write for. Now, right along Mimzy in the early comic strips and artwork of the Hazbin Hotel characters is a hellhound named Crymini. Now, back in the original comic run, the rules for Hell were nothing like we have for Hell now, so I believe that Crymini was originally intended to be a sinner like the rest of the characters. Back then, even Charlie herself was supposed to be a sinner who died in the 1800s, making her the oldest of the Hazbin Hotel cast even back then. In the show proper, I imagine a lot of sinners can still look like hellhounds or other natives, considering that there are demons that look like spiders such as Angel or cats such as Husk. But I also explored in other videos the idea that she could actually be a native to hell in this new version of the story that ends up trying to be the first native to try and get into heaven. I argued in my previous videos that she could have a whole arc dealing with the fact that she was born in hell while the sinners all had a chance at heaven and already failed, and now she is stuck with them. However, it's hard to imagine VivziePop fitting in another new character to such an extreme degree. Serpentius and Baxter seem to have a bit of a symbiotic relationship that allowed them both to get in the show, hopefully to a large degree with Baxter, as he immediately makes the hotel better, I think. But I don't think that Crymini will get that big in appearance. At best, I think we can expect her to be a side character like Mimzy is, having some sort of element she can add to someone else's story like Mimzy did with Alistair, but not a full-fleshed character like Serpentius became and Baxter might be. I wouldn't be surprised if certain characters like Crymini don't make it into the final season as real characters, so just end up sliding in as background extras. This was the fate of another character from back in the day, Molly, Angel's sister. While Molly did make it into the show, it was just as an extra in heaven, with no real connection shown to Angel outside of her design. Molly is interestingly one of just several family members of Angel who have appeared in art by VivziePop, and even parody animatics such as the one where Angel is doing stand-up on VivziePop's channel. There is Hen Rowan, who is Angel's father, and Arachnus, who is Angel's brother, both of whom ended up in hell. Originally, Angel himself was a very different character, and a lot of his story was about being in the Italian mob with his brother and father, with a lot of his interactions being with his brother. At this time, he was supposed to be dating Vaggie, and from his time on Earth, he had a daughter who we know now to be Cherry Bomb, who would have actually been an angel in heaven. Think of how wildly different these characters were, and you can kind of see why certain ones like Mimzy or Crymini just didn't make it into the main show. Alistair himself was dating Mimzy, but he is now known to be asexual, and without that relationship to Alistair and Alistair's own plot likely being wildly different from what it was in the comic, Mimzy simply had no real place anymore. She was given an appearance in an episode now just as an old friend of Alistair's, but the relationship had no depth. He just found her amusing before, and now he finds her to be getting in her way, and if you think about it, that was probably VivziePop's relationship with her too. Whatever deep plot she may have had was probably something specific to the world of Zoophobia where the original comic took place, and she just didn't make sense as a full character to explore in Hazbin Hotel's proper series. Interestingly, Cherry Bomb was also shown to have a love interest in the past, and one who seems to appear in the Addict music video, though with how little focus Cherry Bomb actually gets in the show, I'm not sure if this character will be appearing either. Finally, I would like to talk about the Von Eldridge family. The Von Eldridge family were close friends with Charlie's family, and alluded to heavily with the background art in the Hazbin Hotel pilot. Here, we saw a native demon family that was said to be something like new money in hell. These were elite native demons who grew enough in power to become friends with Lucifer and his family. Friends is a strong word here because despite Lucifer clearly enjoying the company of the father Frederick and Lilith seeming to enjoy the company of the mother Bethesda, Charlie ultimately did not like their two children. With Helsa, she seemed to have an outright rivalry that, at one point, seemed like it might be an important part of Hazbin Hotel's story. Charlie also dated the son Sephiathan for a while, but apparently that wasn't a great relationship, and she quickly saw him as a typical high school jerk. There's enough details we know about these characters from live streams to write some pretty fun fan fiction about Charlie's life, but it's hard to say if it will actually be relevant to the show still. VivziePop wants us to remember these characters as we can see them pictured in Lucifer's home in episode 5, but she also mentioned that these characters might not really be explored until after the main plot of Hazbin Hotel is completed. At the time, she had said that the show would be 3 seasons long, but currently the show is renewed through season 4, and I believe she said she wants even more seasons to tell her main story. Whether or not the Von Eldridge family will have their story explored in this setup, or even appear at all before some new story takes place after the initial one is wrapped up, is hard to say, but like we said earlier, she wants to try and give these old characters a chance to at least appear in some small way. It's really interesting to see how the story developed and how certain arcs or ideas were tested for these various characters before settling in on what the actual story would be about. It creates fun layers of depth to the characters that only some fans will ever really know the true extent of by the time the story ends, because of just how far back some of these details go. Some people say nothing is canon for a character that isn't on screen, but I think VivziePop's works in particular take on something of a sort of meta-spirit and meta-canon that is important to its roots. She's been a very public artist from a very young age, and when she first set out to tell these stories, she clearly had the hopes of being able to tell massive epics. We currently get 8 episodes a season for 4 seasons, but even when VivziePop went from these characters being a side arc in Zoophobia's comic into her own animated story, she likely played with the idea of them having much longer seasons. For me, I really like the sort of layered version of the reality that the Helliverse exists in. It's like its own sort of iceberg of development levels, where things get murkier and murkier the deeper you go, because it's the farthest away from the overt show we have where things actually play out on screen. But what do you guys think? Is it cool that VivziePop has this sort of meta-canon, or is VivziePop just the absolute worse and she should totally be forced to address these changes of her story in a public apology? Let me know how evil you are and how much you hate watch this channel in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.